Welcome to Uncandied Coding, where we seek to examine the ugly sides of life through the lens of real, practical Christianity. Our conversations are raw and unscripted. We have not planned in advance what will be discussed. We just want to have honest dialogue that incorporates the living principles of the gospel without sugarcoating the realities of the human experience. My name is Julia Bellman, and I'm your host, as well as the speaker and director of Family Health and Education Resources, the ministry out of which this podcast was born. We're glad you've decided to join us, and we hope you find encouragement here today. Welcome to another episode of My Name is Julia Bellman. I'm your host, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with Traci Carter. And I'm really excited at the opportunity to be able to speak with Traci because he's got some really exciting things going on. He has one of the fastest growing nonprofit organizations in the United States, which is really exciting. And I'm sure that he's going to tell us all about his organization and why that exists. But before we go any further, I'm going to get out of his way. I'm going to just ask him to introduce himself to our audience and kind of give us a little bit of his background, where he's from, where he's been, where he is now, and where he's headed. So Traci Carter, thank you for joining us in this episode of Uncandied Coding. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Julia. Greatly appreciated being on here. My name is Traci Carter, and I'm from Philadelphia. It's crazy to say this, but I'm an ex-basketball player. I started off my career at the University of Marquette. And then from there, went to LaSalle University, which is in Philadelphia, and finished off my last 2 years at the University of Hartford, where, I became among other things, I became the first team. I was on the first team to ever win American East Championship and go to the tournament for the first time in history, in school history.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was. I run a nonprofit, and it's called Anchors Camp, where we teach inner city youth, trade skills, and you give them confidence and give them a different outlook and perspective on life. So when you say trade skills, it's carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and we just expose them to new opportunities and new options, right? Or alternative options, excuse me. So we take them to a forum, right, to get them out of their environment, right? The quickest way to change your mind is to change your environment. So we change their environment so we can change their mind. And we do horseback riding, ATV riding, take them to cow farms, right? And they basically do everything that an inner city kid would never even think about doing. Like you said, Julie, we have one of the fastest growing nonprofits in the U.S. right now. And, it's just a blessing. It's a blessing. And, this nonprofit is really one of its kind. And, I'm just blessed to be able to give back. The idea came from my little brother was killed in July of 2020. The idea came from him. He was a genius as far as he had an engineering mindset where he could take anything apart and put it back together. But unfortunately, he didn't get to live out through his talents due to his passing to gun violence. So, I just wanted to give back to someone like him, to others like him, because, like I said, I wasn't able to save him, but maybe I could save the next young brother, right? And that's all I'm doing it for.
How old was your little brother when he died?
21. 21, and he had a son.
Oh. How old is his son?
He is 1.5 now. 1.5 years
So
old.
he was just a tiny baby.
Yep.
So you say that he had an engineering mind. What was your brother's name?
Samaj Carter.
Samaj?
Yep. So it's James spelled backwards.
James. That's interesting. My grandson's name is James. Yeah. So Samaj you said that he had an engineering mind, that he could take anything apart and put it back together. So he was really curious. He wanted to know how things work.
Yes. 100%.
Oh, that's
100%.
That's so tragic. I am so, so sorry. I don't do in-depth research on a lot of my guests that my team schedule. My team schedules all of these interviews, and I don't do in-depth research. I know, just what I can find on the surface or things that I already might know, but I don't do deep dives on my guests because I want to get to know you through our conversation. So I quite literally just learned that you had lost your little brother to gun violence a handful of minutes ago. And my heart really goes out to you and your family. I am so sorry. You're the second person in a month that I've talked to who lost a little brother to gun violence on the streets of Philadelphia. And one of the things that I most appreciate about people who have the opportunity to make a deep and lasting impact in their community is that you make the choice to stay and do something about what you find is wrong instead of just complaining about it, making noise about it. You're actively seeking ways to work toward improving it. And the alternative options in the trade skills is fantastic. Because like you say, I don't know of another nonprofit that's working to build the trade skills of our young people. We're not teaching it in the public school system anymore. And you're pushed toward, university, and there's nothing wrong with a university degree with a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts. There's nothing wrong with those secondary degrees. But I mean, realistically, we have to have tradespeople. We have to have skilled workers who are able to do the things that are needful for day-to-day function. And so this is really a fantastic outlet. And I just appreciate your willingness to roll your sleeves up and put in the work and the effort and, the sweat equity that's necessary to give, especially inner city kids, an alternative. This way, they have real life skills that they can put into practice to provide for themselves, a family, and the uplifting of the entire community. So I just think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with going to college. I went to college, got my master's, right? And it's nothing wrong with that. The truth about it is that, a traditional education is not for everyone, right? One thing I just never understood about, the traditional way of college is, because I'm gonna be honest, if I didn't play basketball, I don't know if I would have been in college, right? But, one thing I never understood about, the traditional way of education is that, so in school, right, they give you the answers first, right, and then give you the test, right? But in life, it's the other way around. You're given the test first, and then you have to figure out the answer.
It's so backwards.
Right. One thing I always say is it's always extremes, right? Either you're either, most people make it out to be like either you go to school and you're smart, or you don't go to school and you're not smart, which is totally not the case. Right. And that's what we're trying to change and and correct. Okay, if you don't go to school, right? Here's another option for you, right? And you're just as smart as anyone else, right? Because intelligence is subjective, right?
Absolutely.
That's why right. That's why there's so many types of intelligence, right? There's spatial, agricultural, right? Mathematics, reading, writing, right? There's so many types of intelligence, right? You have kinesis, which is basketball or athletics. So there's so many types of intelligence that are out there, and most people don't even know that there are 9 types of intelligence. So I think it's just about educating people on a higher level, making what's not cool.
Well, you said a mouthful when you said capable. It's not just about the intelligence level. If someone believes that they are capable of certain things, they are going to attempt those things. And the more they recognize and realize that they have a capability in a specific area, they're going to be more confident to try things in other areas. So the more and more you open the door for people at large, the more and more you shed light on the capabilities that they may have inherently, just naturally, or the things that you equip them and empower them to do. The more we're willing to venture out and to explore and examine other things. Now we're not caged, if you will, into a specific area. And by and large, the people that I speak with who have followed that traditional education path, you know, they've gotten their high school diploma, then they've gone to undergrad, then they've gotten their graduate degrees. They're varying levels of graduate degrees, but they're very boxed in. One of the recent conversations that I had with one of the guests on the show, Jennifer Jill Schwarzer, she talked about in her career, she could have gone in a couple of different directions. She was always in love with psychology, but also she wanted to study theology. She wasn't sure if she wanted to get a pastoral degree and go into pastoral ministry, or if she wanted to somehow be able to marry psychology in there somewhere. And so she decided that she didn't want to be boxed in. And so she allowed her degree to work for her and also pursue the things that she was passionate about based on capability, opportunity, and all of those things. So I feel like what you're describing for us is that you haven't tried to pigeonhole the people who your organization is working with and for into any given area, but you're trying to broaden perspective, broaden horizons to give them a broad swath of opportunity and then encourage and enable them to take that into a successful life direction.
100%. You hit it right on the nose. So I think everything is a full circle. Shout out to my man Scoop Jardine. So everything's a full circle, right? So when they come to the camp, right, what can I say? Their mindset is already narrowed and small, right?
Yeah.
So now we have to broaden that, broaden it until they find out what their talent is, right? Because everyone has a God-given talent. And then we want them to narrow it back down to their God-given talent. And then once they're successful at that, then they can branch back out again.
Right.
Right. But, you know, everyone has a God-given talent that needs to be honed and needs to be used. Think about how many people who, I know who you could honestly say that they don't know what their God-given talent is.
You have no idea how many people I talk to on the daily who have no idea that they have a talent in any direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone has one. It's just about finding it. And the most successful ones find it earlier in life. And the ones who don't, and the ones who find it later in life, they're wise on it, very successful.
You were raised primarily by your grandmother. I want to shift gears just a little bit. You were raised primarily by your grandmother. Yeah. When we spoke briefly earlier, you said your grandmother, your face lit up like Christmas time, because of course we can see each other face to face. We're only doing an audio recording, but you had this massive smile on your face when you mentioned what a strong and important woman she was in your life. And number one, I love that. But there's always a reason, why the grandparents step in and they're, basically raising the children. What was that like? What was going on there?
My mom has been on drugs my entire life. And, like you said, so my grandma had to step in and be a mother to all of us. And it's 7 of us, right? I have 6 siblings. I'm the 7th one. I am third to last in that bunch of 7. And my grandma basically raised all of us. My face lit up because, without her, I wouldn't be here today, right? And she done an amazing job, the best job she could. When you think about it, right? I'm just so blessed to be a positive female figure that was in my life, right? Because there's a stat out there that says, I think it's about 75%, if the mother is successful, or the woman figure in a children's life, then the child will be successful. I'm just blessed that I was able to have a female figure in my grandmom, and she taught me the right thing to do, the right way to go. And, she wasn't perfect, but none of us are.
So was your mother incarcerated? Was she a part of your life? Was she?
Yeah, so she was on drugs, but she was in and out of my life. It takes a toll on a kid to, see his mother in and out of his life. And sometimes she remember your birthday, sometimes she don't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's traumatizing. Or even waking up on Christmas and you know that your grandma got you the new boots, right? These new boots, and everybody gonna think they hide when you walk into school and all that, and you wake up on Christmas and they stolen, right, by your mother. Dealing with all that, it's traumatizing, right? And as you get older, you had to unlearn those traumas just to relearn the right way to do things.
Is it possible to unlearn trauma though? Do you think it is?
I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can unlearn trauma. I don't know if you can unlearn trauma, but you can take it and use it. You can take that trauma and use it for good.
Here's what I like to say when I talk about trauma and the things that I've been through in my life. I had a very traumatic life. And I like to take that trauma and turn it into a tactical advantage, because if I know that this thing happened for this reason, even if it's for no reason, I want to take that and I want to use it as a tool in my arsenal for the best good and the benefit of someone else who may be going through that or has gone through that or is still struggling to overcome, the impact of that or whatever.
100%.
Yeah, my mother wasn't on drugs. My mother was an alcoholic. And it wasn't until about 3 years before she passed away that she and I had any kind of reconciliation. We had a very tumultuous relationship. My whole childhood was littered with neglect, abuse, emotional and mental traumas. We would go hungry. It's myself and three sisters. We would literally go days without eating. And so all of the little impact, the day-to-day impact of those things builds over time. And like you said, it really makes a deep and lasting impact on a kid. When you're 6 years old and you're like, why doesn't my mother love me enough to fill in the blank?
Right.
You take that on yourself. It wasn't my fault that my mother was an alcoholic. It wasn't your fault that your mother was on drugs and absent and all of the details that go along with that. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't your fault. But we as children take it on ourselves.
Right.
What's wrong with me? Why aren't I enough? Those feelings of inadequacy that marked and really dictated my life for a very long time. I'm now able to recognize and identify those traits, those characteristics, those feelings in people that I minister to, people who, go through our programs or that I connect with personally, and use the challenges that I've been through for their benefit. So that's how I think we unlearn trauma, is we take it and we twist it and mold it and shape it into a weapon of a different sort. There's a scripture. It says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Well, the weapons that have been used against me, I've now taken those weapons and used them as a means of helping and encouraging and inspiring other people.
100%.
And that's what I see you're doing with your foundation and with the people that you're striving to impact.
Right. You hit it right on the nose. All I can do is what I went through, right, and pass it along to someone else, right? Because I was watching this one video, I forget by who, and he talked about how everything happens over and over and over again, 24 hours. Sometimes we just don't realize that it happens over and over again. Most of us, all of us are going through the same thing, going through the exact same thing. We just don't know it. And because we don't know it, we take it and we feel like we're the only ones going through it, right? Which makes us feel alone. So if I know that my friend knows going through the same thing that I'm going through, then I'm less likely to feel alone, which will help me out better in my path of getting through whatever the problem is.
Absolutely.
So, right. So if we're able to understand, first you have to understand, and then what's more important than understanding, you have to be able to accept. And accepting things. All right, so I understand you just had a bad day, whatever happened, right? Your mom did something to you, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. When you snap on me, I'm less likely to snap on you because I understand that you had a bad day. And I know you're not just doing it for no reason. I understand that. But now if I accept it, then I'll be able to move on. Because I can still understand it, be like, I understand it, but you still shouldn't have did that. But if I accept it, now I'm able to, go about my way and have peace with it.
Right. Throughout the programs that we establish in communities across the states, we borrow heavily from that serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so we literally break that down into bite-sized pieces, and everything that you're going through, everything that happens in any given day, no matter what's going on, you can look at things through the lens of that simple prayer. Because, God, is this something that I can change? Is this something that I cannot change? And if I can, give me the things that I need to change it. If I can't, let me just not even worry about it. And, my husband and I often we have 6 adult children. We've got 7 grandchildren. And, so we have a lot of stuff we can't control in our life. We're going to take just a quick break and be right back. Over a 5-year span, Family Health and Education Resources worked with professionals in mental and medical health, counselors, teachers, pastors, and first responders, as well as individuals walking in freedom, and even those who are still chained to the cruel cycle of addiction and depression. We did so to develop community programs that effectively address these issues and make them available to community sponsors across the United States. The Free Indeed philosophy is simple. Combine health sciences with the biblical principles of health and restoration in a practical approach to restored health and vitality. Now that communities across the United States are opening back up to in-person events, we are looking for community partners to work with Family Health and Education Resources to bring these life-changing Free Indeed programs to life for the millions of people struggling to simply put one foot in front of the other. If your church group or organization would like to know how to make the Free Indeed programs a reality for your community, please email me directly at julia@fheronline.com and help break the cruel cycle of depression and addiction in your community. Email me today at julia@fheronline.com. You said everybody's going through the same thing. And in Ecclesiastes, chapter 1 and verse 9, it says, that thing that has been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. There's nothing new. The human experience, the traumas, the tribulations, the trials, the heartaches, you cannot invent a new situation. You can try, but it's a guarantee that someone at some point has experienced exactly what you are experiencing. The only difference comes in how we respond and we react to those circumstances and those situations.
100%. And, like you said, everything just comes down to, understanding and knowing and accepting because, like you said, a lot of us just don't know. A lot of us don't even fully understand that what you just said, new under the sun. And as sad as it is, this is deep, but it's true. Most of us are still in darkness and we don't know we're in this, right? So can you imagine that, right? Being in darkness and not knowing you're in darkness, but living every day like it's normal.
Yeah. That was my life.
And right, that was a bunch of our lives. And it's sad because some people don't know that they really are in darkness.
Yeah. So you said that you take the kids who go through your programs, you take them out of their immediate environment.
Yeah.
We cannot heal in the environment that made us sick.
100%. 100%.
I mean, I was born and raised in central Kentucky. I currently live in Oregon. But the best thing I ever did for myself, my own mental and emotional and even spiritual well-being was leave behind the toxic environment that was quite literally destroying my vitality. Everything about myself as an individual was being choked to death in that environment. And so while there are people in my what I like to call my community of origin, right? In my community of origin that I love dearly, there are very, very, very many situations and circumstances that I just
you have to, once I left Philadelphia, went to Marquette, the normal became unnormal. And it was like, because I'm in a new environment. So it was like, yo, like they don't do that. They don't do this out here. Oh my, okay, that ain't regular. Yeah, like, okay. Imagine walking out of your house. Now, Philadelphia is the murder capital right now. And Philadelphia also has the biggest dope capital in the world in Kensington, right? So I want you to just imagine walking outside of your house and seeing dope fiends. They are so high. They're sitting in the middle of the street, standing up, but bent over.
Yeah,
I know
the dope.
So
because when heroin says you're taking a nap, you're taking a nap.
100%.
Right.
100%. So imagine a kid coming outside of his house and thinking that's normal. So once I left Philadelphia and went to Marquette and traveled, it was like, oh my God, this is not normal. But then when I went back to Philadelphia at LaSalle University, the unnormal became normal again in that setting. I started accepting things that I didn't accept out there. I made some mistakes based off of accepting things and the unnormal becoming normal again. And like you said, that's why, you have to be able to understand what environment is sick and what environment is healthy.
Yeah. I have a book that I haven't written yet. I'm a 3-time published author.
It's amazing. Wow.
That was so when I was a little kid and I was getting the crap kicked out of me just about every day. And I don't mean discipline and punishment. I mean just straight up abuse. The best and only thing that my 6-year-old mind could come up with as far as escapism, I would write myself into stories. So I would write myself into stories and I would be somewhere else. I would be someone else. I would, whatever. And so I started writing very, very young age. So one of my life goals was to be a published author by the time I turned 30. God blessed me to be able to accomplish that. I wrote under a pseudonym. I do not share that pseudonym, so you can't find the books. But anyway, so I have a book that I have been chewing on for a long time. And I know that when I sit down to write it, it'll be 2 weeks and it'll be done. There's a community in central Kentucky. I'm not going to put them on blast right now, but there's a small little community in central Kentucky. And it's like, I want to say 85 to 90% of the households within that community are either actively involved in methamphetamine use and trade or are directly affected by the meth crisis.
Mm.
And so the title of that book, and I know, I mean, I've got the whole thing, it's all written.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the characters within this story have that mindset that there's nothing beyond the borders of that community. And so what I think is so vitally important where your organization is concerned and where my ministry meet is that there is so much beyond that border. Yeah. There's so much more. You do not have to be trapped in your immediate environment. You do not have to be trapped within your immediate circumstance. There are choices and decisions that you can make as an individual that are going to lend themselves to your well-being, the well-being of the people who you have influence with, and your ability to not only impact your life and the lives of those within your circle, but well beyond that. That idea that the abnormal is the normal, it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You look around. When I go back home, in air quotes, home,
mm-hmm.
I look around, and the one thing that keeps going through my mind is you can't possibly think this is normal.
100%. Same.
And I'm not going back to the inner city in Philadelphia. I'm going to cornbread country. But at the same time, it's the same thing because that which has been is that which will be, and there is no new thing under the sun. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with it in the inner city in Philadelphia or if you're in rural Kentucky. It's the same track.
Right.
It's the same track.
Right, exactly.
How can we raise awareness and bring people to the understanding who are trapped within these circumstances and situations? How can we get them to be attracted to the idea that there's more beyond the border? That's one of the things within my ministry that I struggle with is the convincing people that, there's so much more than this. People are terrified of the unknown. How do you break the spell? How do you break the spell of dysfunction?
That's the hard part about it, right? Because there is not just one way you do it. Everyone's different. It may take you one time to hear it. It may take me 20 times to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about going through that process of understanding that everyone is different and find that a square can't fit to a circle and vice versa, right? So I don't think there's one pathway to there, right? Now the hard part is figuring out, what path? There's a bunch of paths, but which path is this person best for, or this community or this group best for? And that's why when you talk about what you're doing actively out there is you're out there, you roll your sleeves up and you in the midst of it. And within that midst of it, that's what you're doing. Because again, not everyone is the same and you have to deal with people on those basics. So I don't think there's just one way. There's not just one magic answer to, getting this right? There's so many other options.
We're going to take just a quick break and be right back. Once COVID-19 brought in-person meetings and events to a halt, Family Health and Education Resources was forced to take the free Indeed programs that address the cycle of depression and addiction online. We have worked over these past few months to create an online classroom for people who don't have access to the in-person programs that will give them the tools and encouragement they need to break free from the cycle of depression and addiction. FHERonline.teachable.com is where you will find the online version of the community programs. Learn how to live the life of abundance Jesus promised in John chapter 10. He said, "The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." Once you've enrolled, you'll enjoy lifetime access to the current programs offered by Family Health and Education Resources, as well as all future programs. You'll have access to all of the materials that have been designed for your immediate and continued success. Family Health and Education Resources is a Christian ministry with one mission: bring hope to the hopeless and share the wealth of information that has and is working for us and the ones who dare to take a chance. The website is fheronline.teachable.com. Enroll today to begin your journey to freedom. That's fheronline.teachable.com. What's the best piece of advice your grandmother ever gave you? There's that smile again, by the way.
The best piece of advice that she ever gave me: don't lie. It sounds so cliche, but the cliches are the deepest of them all, because if you think about it, it's not the real problem is not when you lie to others, but it's when you lie to yourself.
I was going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth.
Great minds think alike. And so many of us lie to ourselves. Oh, you can't do it. On a small scale, something like that. You can't do it. You're ugly. And those are just on a small scale, but they have huge impacts on your life.
Whose voice do you hear the most? It's not somebody else's voice. It's your own voice. That's right. Who we talk to the most. It's the things that we tell ourselves. It's your inner voice. The voice that you talk to yourself with is the voice that has the most impact in your day-to-day. One of the things that I encourage people to stop doing, especially if they're in any kind of an abusive relationship, and it doesn't matter if it's with a romantic partner or if it's with a parent or coworker or whatever, is don't let the abusive language that other person uses, please don't make the mistake of allowing that to become the way that you talk to yourself. Mm-hmm. Because that's what happened where I was concerned. I started to believe all of the things that I was told my whole life. I'm stupid. I'm ugly. I'll never amount to anything. I have no contribution to the world. I'm a waste of air. Like you just wouldn't believe. And so I would replay the things that I had been told, the negative, horrible things that I had been told. I would replay them. And by replaying them, I'm telling them to myself. Mm-hmm. And those things aren't true. Those things aren't true. I am capable. I might not be the brightest crayon in the box, but in the grand scheme of things, in the scope of the portrait, I have a place. And 100%. And I have talents, and I have skills, and I have contributions. I am worthy of the love that has been bestowed on me by the creator of the universe. Even if nobody else likes me, he does. Mm-hmm. And that's worth something. Right.
And but that's knowing that he does, that's more love than anyone else could give.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we go any further, what's your faith background?
I'm Muslim. Yeah.
So you believe that God the Father loves you?
100%.
Can you contain that? Can you fit that into any kind of box?
Here's what I think. I think that we can't even possibly begin to understand what God's definition of love means. It's too strong. It's too big. It's too big. It's too huge.
It's too big.
Right.
Right.
It's too much.
So, what do you say to someone who has been so beaten down by this world, by the evil that exists in this world, by the abuses that they have fielded, by the discouragements and disappointments that have inevitably happened throughout their life, and they believe, they have been convinced some way or another that there is no one that could possibly love someone who has sunken so far as they have, whoever they might be out in the world? What do you say to someone who believes that there's no possible way that this creator God could care about their insignificant self? What do you say to that person?
I think it's a couple of things, right? I think, first, if I was talking to someone like that, I would tell them about my flaws and how imperfect I am.
Mm-hmm.
And next, I would tell them that everything begins with how you talk to yourself. And you said that you said that when you called yourself stupid, that wasn't true.
Right.
Even though it's not true, it is true because you're telling yourself that.
Yeah.
And then I would try to go in details and give them examples of what I mean, just how we can change our life. We can change that all by starting with belief. So you have to convince yourself that you are worthy. And then I would try to give them, I still do this to this day, affirmations. Every day you get up, do affirmations, because even if you don't begin to believe it, when you first start off, you'll eventually come to believe it because you'll keep saying it to yourself. And I'll tell them that, you're not going to believe it when you start, and that's okay, but you will come to believe it.
We do in my programs, we do a 10-day challenge where every day for 10 days, you're going to write down 10 things that you're thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the examples that I use, there's an evangelist from the 60s. I told you I'm a nerd. But he did a series of presentations, and so I downloaded and listened to these old recordings. And he said, if you can't find anything to be thankful for, be thankful for your neck. Try to get along without it. Right? So we go through and we list 10 things every day for 10 days. You list 10 things that you're thankful for. And at the end of that 10 days, you have 100 different things that you have been actively thinking about in a positive connotation. The context is strictly positive. I'm thankful that it's not 118 degrees on my porch today. I'm thankful that I have a car that I can drive. I'm thankful that I'm less than an hour away from the grocery store. These things that you might take for granted, even if you're in the inner city of Philadelphia, there are 10 things today that person can be thankful for. And you're working to retrain your mind to focus in a positive direction rather than dwelling in the negative soup that we have all swam in. So,
yes.
And then because we need to train people to think on positive things, to think on things that are going to elevate and uplift them rather than continue with those self-deprecating lies, no matter what they are, no matter the direction that they came from. And like you said, when you give them voice, you're validating those things. And by validating them, you're making them true. Stop making them true. Refuse to allow those things and say, no, I'm not stupid.
I used to, it's so important, right? Because I used to always think that, I was, so to call it stupid or dumb, right? And then I heard someone say, what I said earlier, that intelligence is subjective. I was like, what? I looked up what subjective was, and I was like, oh. Okay, well, I'm not stupid then, because I know I'm smart at this. So once I figured that out, it was like, God, that's I took a jump in life.
Right.
It was all because I just started to believe that I wasn't stupid.
Right. the work that I do in the community is designed to bring an awareness to individuals to know that they have worth and value, even in their own personal sphere and then beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have kept you way too long.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I just so much appreciate your willingness to chat with me. We've talked about quite a bit. We've covered a lot of ground. I think that we share a desire to empower people to overcome the challenges that they face within their immediate environments and see beyond those boundaries, the boundaries that don't even have to be physical. They can be mental and emotional boundaries, the things that our past traumas and our past painful experiences keep us from embracing. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, in Philadelphia and beyond. And I hope that we can chat again and see how these things are working to impact our communities. And who knows, if anyone in the Philadelphia area wants to sponsor my program to come in and establish addiction and depression programs, then I am absolutely open to that. Thank you for your willingness to chat with me. I look forward to seeing how Anchors Camp grows and impacts the kids in Philadelphia.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for for having me on, and also giving me a platform to share what I'm doing. If you need more information, you can go to our website, which is anchorscamp.org. And or you can also just Google us and whatnot. So
Awesome.
Again, thank you so much. And what we provide, which is sort of what you do, is we provide help to kids individually. So whatever their individually needs are, we provide that after the camp. So we always say, once you make the commitment to come to camp for one summer, it's not just a one summer deal, but it's a 40 summer deal, because whatever you need after camp, we're going to be with you. So say if there's a kid who's in a dire situation, don't have neither of his parents, he's 18 and he really wants out of the street life, but he just don't know how. And he's very much into carpentry. So what we would do is we'll further his education in carpentry school through scholarships, allowing him to further his education and get away from environment where we also buy real estate and we house kids and we find them a job. So we do the whole nine to help and see these kids succeed. What the same thing that I'm doing, someone did for me.
It's a beautiful way to pay it forward. And that continued mentorship, I think it's a vital component, and not just the telling them what to do and how to do it, but the guidance and the assistance in, we just need help. I can't tell you, looking back, we just do. I can't even tell you how impactful it would have been, as a young single mother, if I had someone just give me a chance. And it would have made all the difference in the world. So what your motto is giving somebody the chance that somebody gave you. And for me, it's, I strive to be the person I needed when my life was garbage. So that's that's what we're supposed to be doing. Anyway, we could spend all day talking about those things, but I think it's important to employ the mentorship attitude beyond just the coming to camp, like you said. That I think is just absolutely beautiful. Keep in touch.
Thank you, sir.
Do I have permission to save your number and text you random articles or empowerments that I may
100%.
run across? Okay, fantastic.
100%. I would love that.
Thank you, Traci. I always pray with my guests before I close. Is that okay with you?
Perfect. Yeah.
Father in heaven, it's amazing that you allow us to have a little place in your plan to empower and encourage young people, old people, all points in between. Father, I thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to sit down with Traci today and to discuss the things that you have put on our hearts and the ways that you have blessed us to be able to bless others. I just ask that you continue to bless the work of his hands, Lord. Give him success in the work that he's doing. Bless the people who he will touch and empower through his organization. Continue to bless with the finances that are necessary to carry these missions forward. And just be with us. Help us to know each new step to take and give us the courage to take it, according to all of the goodness that we enjoy because you love us. We praise you and we thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've taken courage from our conversation. If you have questions you'd like answered specifically, please email our team at uncandidcoding@fheronline.com. If you'd like to share your story with us, you can send me an email directly at julia@fheronline.com. We hope you'll join us again. And until then, God bless and Godspeed.